there, welcome to Limabean Crafting. In today's video, I thought I would highlight some of my most popular tower game DIYs using the tower game blocks from the Dollar Tree. So let's get to it. Let's first start with one of my favorites to date. To begin, you will need a pie pan from the Dollar Tree. They do sell cake pans, so be careful not to confuse the two. We are going to clean the surface with some rubbing alcohol and then cover it with some spray paint. I used this spray paint that I picked up from Walmart for $1 or $2. I then let the pan dry for 24 hours before continuing with the craft. In the center of the pan, I attached 3 of these magnetic succulents that the Dollar Tree sells. I had to glue the magnets that were on the inside of the plastic vase to the outside because the strength of the magnet wasn't too strong. I like how you can change out the flowers if you want, depending on the season. The next step was to hot glue on 43 Dollar Tree tower blocks that I pre-stained using some Martha Stewart wood stain that I had on hand. One tower game contains 36 blocks, so you will need to pick up 2 games for this craft and will have 29 blocks left over for another craft in the future. I glued on the blocks so that the end of the block would rest right at the rim of the pie pan. The last step was to find a way to hang this guy on the wall. I decided just to hot glue a little jute twine that I had on hand to the back in a loop. For a larger wall, I would make 2 more and just have one of the succulents in the center and then either hang them in a row or in some sort of triangle or whatever. Now let's move on to another one of my favorites. This is hanging above our bed and I just love it. To make this craft, you will need 1 foam board and 2 tower games from the Dollar Tree. I began by laying the tower game blocks alongside my foam board and figuring out how big I wanted my sign. If you want to get 2 signs out of 1 board, I would recommend using the size that I chose. 16 tower game blocks long, this should be the length of the board, and 5 tower game blocks wide. I marked off where I needed to cut the board and then used an X-Acto knife to cut the straight line. If you want to see how I made this cute creation I made with the remaining half of the foam board, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would love for you to stick around and see my future crafts. After the board was cut, it was time to hot glue my pre-stained tower game blocks to the edges. For those who are curious, I used some Martha Stewart wood stain that I always have on hand. I would suggest lining up your first block flush with the end of the board and gluing the pieces side to side until you've reached the other end. Your last piece should extend a little past the board so that when you continue gluing blocks on the next side, it creates a nice flush corner. Also, I should note that I made sure the back of the board and the back of the blocks were flush, giving the front of the sign a little bit more of a dimensional look. After I finished hot gluing the tower game blocks around the perimeter of the foam board, it was time to design and have my CRICUT cut out the phrase for the sign. I decided to go with "This is us" followed by our names. I wanted to leave some room for more names as my husband and I are hoping to grow our family, so that's why there's a little bit more space on the right-hand side of the sign. And I also want to note that I used removable vinyl so I can easily replace this phrase with something else if I want to switch things up in the future. To hang this sign, I decided to use some recycled soda can tabs that we've been saving up. You just need to bend the tab enough to make hanging it easy and then glue it to the back of your sign, making sure that the 2 tabs are level. I would suggest using hot glue and/or E6000. This next one is super popular and very versatile for the seasons. To begin, you will need 2 2-packs of Dollar Tree foam dice and 1 pack of their balloons. I liked the white, but you can choose whatever color fits your home. Start by cutting off the stem of the balloon at its base where the round part of the balloon starts to form. We're going to use the balloons to give a smooth painted look without all of the work of the paint. But if you would rather have painted dice, that's fine too. I just really like how quick this step went. You simply stretch the balloon over the dice, and that's it. With the white balloons, I found that I needed 3 layers of balloon to fully hide the dice dots and color. As you can see, I alternated the sides of the dice that the opening of the balloon would land on. Don't worry so much about the side of the dice that shows this balloon's opening. This side will be hidden in the final product or covered up with vinyl. I'm going to set these aside for now and show you how I made the frame using the tower game blocks from Dollar Tree. I used 45 blocks in total, so that means that you will need 2 tower block games and will have 27 blocks left over for another project. I used hot glue to secure my blocks together, and I haven't had any issues, but if you would rather use wood glue, feel free. You are going to need one of these rectangular pieces made up of 15 blocks and another piece using 5 blocks glued end to end. You will also need this rectangular piece, also made up of 15 blocks, a set of 2 pieces glued at their sides, and a set of 3 pieces glued at their ends. Take the uniform 15-piece rectangle and attach the 5-block piece. This will be the base of the frame that holds the die. Next, glue together the pieces made with 3 blocks with the pieces made from 2 blocks to form an L shape. These will be the sides of the frame. Attach these to the base and finally glue on the checkerboard-like piece to the top, attaching it to the top of the L-shaped pieces. To attach the hooks, I bought one of these picture hanging kits from the Dollar Tree and used 5 of the eye hooks. You can either screw them in first and then bend them to form a hook shape, or form the hooks first and then attach them. I just used pliers to bend the metal. To screw them into the base of the frame, I found it was easier to first make an indent by slightly hammering in one of the nails that came in the kit, and then twisted in the pieces until the screw portion no longer showed. I put the hooks at the center of each of the 3-piece squares, but you could attach the hooks closer to the edge or the back if you want. Now that the frame has been assembled and the die have been covered, let's talk about how I designed the stickers and stencil used for the lettering and images. I used the free font Lemonade stand from the website DaFont for the word home and wanted some type of script for the word sweet. Unfortunately, I didn't find one that I liked, so I figured I would write it myself using the Procreate app on my iPad, removing the background and saving the image as a PNG before uploading it to CRICUT Design Space. For the dice letters, I wanted to use the same font, but I didn't want the letters to be as narrow as the font actually is. So I selected each letter individually, unchecked the lock symbol above the width and height measurements, and adjusted the measurements to be just under 2 inches. If you don't uncheck the lock symbol, you won't be able to change the width without simultaneously altering the height too. As for the designated O dice, I wanted to have images representing different holidays or seasons. So I searched for free images and found a sunflower, heart, pumpkin, and snowflake. I also wanted an Easter egg, but I didn't find a free one, so again, I just decided to design my own using the Procreate app. If you are really interested in the nitty-gritty details of how I do that, I'd be happy to make a video on it, so just let me know in the comments below if you would like that. After getting all the images and letters to the desired size, I arranged them on the canvas and welded them together so that they would all be cut at once. I should note that it would have been easier if I had done the phrase home sweet in its own project at the beginning. Then it was time for the CRICUT to do its thing. I used the CRICUT brand stencil vinyl for the phrase home sweet, and I used the CRICUT brand permanent black vinyl for the letters and images for the die. I made sure to place the black vinyl on a smooth side of the dice so that the balloon openings would be hidden. I used the pumpkin image to cover up the opening on the designated O dice. I am planning on making some more images for the holidays that I missed, and I do want to note that if you have more than 6 images for the O, you will want to put 5 of them on the O dice, and on the 6th side of that dice, put one of your letters, H, M, or E, and then on that letter's dice, add the remaining images. That way you can switch between the 2 die depending on the image you want to use. After the die were complete, I transferred my cut stencil vinyl to my frame and sponged on some Dollar Tree white acrylic paint. This was my first time using the stencil and this technique, and I'm actually really happy with the final product. The trickiest part was making sure I didn't forget the tiny unattached parts of the stencil, like the center of the E or the loops in the S and W. Overall, I'm really pleased with how everything turned out. And finally, here's one of my original crafts. So to start, you are going to need 4 tower games from the Dollar Tree. The entire game is about as tall as a nail file, so they are quite tiny. I've seen 2 varieties of this game in stores, one with 2 different colored blocks and this one. I preferred this set because I wanted to eventually stain the pieces. To make the blocks for the calendar, I began by hot gluing 3 pieces together and then glued 5 sets of 3 together in the same way as if you were playing Jenga. The hot glue dries pretty quick, so you have to work a little fast. Once the block was finally assembled, Juan helped me by sanding it down because I wanted the sides to be smooth. This isn't a necessary step, but if you don't do this, the wooden numbers will not lay flush with the blocks. I had some of this Martha Stewart wood stain on hand from a previous craft, and after experimenting with color combinations, I decided to stain the blocks and paint the numbers white rather than the other way around. In order to be able to create the numbers 0, 1 through 31, you are going to need one die with the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 7, and 8, and another die with the numbers 0, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. The 6 will act as both a 6 and a 9. Moving on to the frame, I wanted something to display the blocks and date tiles while also acting as a decoration, so I made sure to have a shelf in the front that can hold a phone or other small decorations, and also added a pocket in the back to either hold flowers or pens and pencils. To create this frame, you are going to need one 2x3 piece that will serve as the top shelf. You are going to need 2 of these 2x2 pieces to serve as the siding of the back pocket. You will need 5 of these block combinations for the main frame and center shelf. Notice how this piece has vertical blocks in the center. And finally, you will need 3 of these block combinations for the main frame. Notice how this piece has horizontal blocks in the center. Alternating these pieces with the previous pieces creates a really cool pattern. You will need a total of 10 blocks for the dates, 4 for the days of the week, and 6 for the months of the year. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more ideas, and we'll catch you in the next one.